Sean Diddy Combs escapes life sentence as shocking federal verdict is reached. In a dramatic and emotionally charged conclusion to one of the most high-profile celebrity trials in recent memory, music mogul Sean Diddy Combs has narrowly avoided spending the rest of his life behind bars. On Wednesday, July 2nd, after more than 7 weeks of intense testimony, federal jurors delivered a mixed verdict on the 5 counts levied against Combs, one that stunned both supporters and critics alike. After deliberating for nearly 4 days, the jury acquitted Combs of 2 of the most serious allegations: racketeering and sex trafficking. These charges, if proven, could have resulted in a life sentence. Instead, the jury found the Bad Boy Records founder guilty on 2 lesser but still serious charges related to prostitution. Although these convictions carry a potential sentence of up to 20 years in federal prison, they represent a far more favorable outcome than the originally feared life imprisonment. According to CNN, the courtroom fell silent as the verdict was read aloud. Combs, dressed in a dark suit and flanked by his defense attorneys, dropped to his knees and bowed his head, appearing to pray. His mother and children, seated behind him in the gallery, immediately began clapping and cheering with visible relief. Combs looked at them and reportedly mouthed, "I'll be home soon." His defense team, led by attorney Brian Steele, appeared visibly emotional. The legal team exchanged hugs and handshakes as the weight of the moment sank in. Combs himself embraced Steele in a long hug following the partial verdict. The trial, which had become a media sensation, took place in a Manhattan federal courtroom and spanned nearly 2 months. Prosecutors brought forward dozens of witnesses, including key testimony from his former girlfriend, singer Cassie Ventura, as well as rapper Kid Cudi, former bodyguards, assistants, private investigators, and several sex workers. The prosecution alleged that Combs led a criminal enterprise that was involved in racketeering and sex trafficking, including coercion and use of force. Cassie Ventura's testimony was particularly impactful. She alleged that Combs had manipulated and abused her during their relationship, and her story was supported by digital messages, recorded calls, and photographs that prosecutors said illustrated a pattern of abusive behavior. Additional witnesses described alleged incidents that painted a dark picture of the hip-hop icon's personal life behind the glamour. However, the defense mounted a forceful rebuttal. Steele argued that the case was riddled with inconsistencies, questionable motives, and unreliable testimony from individuals with personal grudges or financial interests in seeing Combs convicted. He claimed that much of the evidence presented was circumstantial, cherry-picked, or misrepresented to fit a narrative of guilt. In his closing arguments, Steele urged the jury to consider the lack of direct evidence tying Combs to any organized crime or trafficking network. Jurors appeared to accept some of the defense's arguments, ultimately clearing Combs of the most serious charges. However, they did find sufficient evidence to convict him on 2 federal counts related to prostitution, specifically the transportation of individuals across state lines for the purpose of commercial sex acts. While the maximum sentence for those charges could total up to 20 years, legal experts suggest that Combs is likely to face significantly less time due to his lack of prior convictions and the partial acquittal. Sentencing is scheduled for late September, and the defense is expected to file motions for leniency, while prosecutors may push for the maximum allowable sentence. Reaction to the verdict has been mixed. Fans and supporters have expressed relief and defended the music mogul, praising the outcome as justice and hailing his resilience throughout the ordeal. On social media, the hashtag #FreeDiddy began trending shortly after the verdict was announced. Others, however, have criticized the verdict, arguing that it reflects the influence and privilege often granted to wealthy celebrities in the criminal justice system. Legal analyst Rachel Bernstein told MSNBC, "This is a case where public opinion has been deeply divided from day one. While many feel justice was done, there are those who believe the most powerful figures often get a softer landing. We'll have to see what the sentencing looks like before drawing final conclusions." Combs has remained largely silent throughout the proceedings, speaking only through his legal team and making brief remarks outside court. However, his statement to his family, "I'll be home soon," has been widely interpreted as a sign of optimism and belief that he will not serve the full 20 years. The trial marks one of the most dramatic chapters in Combs' long and storied career. Once a towering figure in the music industry, responsible for shaping the careers of countless artists and helping define the sound of 1990s and 2000s hip-hop, Combs now faces a drastically different future. Whether he ultimately serves years in prison or receives a reduced sentence, the reputational damage from the trial and the emotional toll on his family are undeniable. Still, with some of the most damning charges dismissed, Combs and his team are likely to see the verdict as a victory, even as they brace for what lies ahead. As sentencing approaches, all eyes will remain on the federal courthouse in New York City, and on the fate of one of the most influential figures in music history. One thing is certain: while Sean Diddy Combs has avoided life in prison, the consequences of this trial will follow him for the rest of his life.